So, John, if you look at John's website, he's got a string of qualifications and he has a very busy praxis, but he's an advisor, he's a speaker, he's an author. His book is Dreaming Your World into Being, The Shaman's Secret to Having the Life You Desire Now. He regularly conducts individual, couple, group shamanic healing sessions at his local office in Monterey and at Post Ranch in Big Sur. Please welcome Shaman John.
We have a lot of shamans here, actually, I think you'll find. It's really an honor to be here in this beautiful space and community, truly. Quite humbled, actually. So hopefully, I think you'll find a lot of what I say to be something you're really familiar with already in a lot of ways. And hopefully I can add a little bit of something to that. And so in the words of my Karo teachers, who are a small tribe high in the Andes of Peru that have been the sort of shamans of that area for maybe 15,000 plus years, they would greet you with their word in Quechua, Ayanchu, which means, how does your village live within you? To sensitive people, to the shamans, they don't necessarily say, hi, how are you? How are you doing? Because they know that as sensitive people, you're sort of about as good as the rest of your village. And this is a beautiful village we have here, and it's a village within a village, within a village, and now it's the globe, right? Because we're all connected. So that's one of the things about shamans and sensitive people. Oh, yes, you can see the picture there of where they live, which is 16,000 feet in the Andes. They've been there for the last 500 years. They purposely isolated themselves when the conquistadors came, because there was a worldview that wasn't sustainable to their minds. When the conquistadors first came to this part of the world, the Karo had a worldview that was very feminine-based and earth-based, and they looked around and they recognized it's the feminine that gives birth to everything, and so it was very matriarchal, and it was very honoring of earth and of all things feminine, our bodies, all things matter, right, which is mater, which is mother. And so there was never a separation of spirit and matter to them. There was no place God was not. In the simplest things, there's consciousness. So the conquistadors told them a different story. And it was more masculine-based, and it was more separate from nature, and it was more separate from the feminine. And so they thought that if God answers your prayers and these deep stories always become true, then this story of the feminine being suppressed would lead to disaster. It would lead to sort of disease in the body, and it would lead to environmental disaster, and it would lead to the way women have been treated and all these big problems. And so they left so that they could hold on to the myths that they felt worked, that they thought were peaceful and healthy and sustainable, because they thought we might need them again someday. And so they literally disappeared, and the other 29 million Peruvian natives didn't even know they existed. They were gone. Still a 3 days journey on horseback, deep in the mountains, and their hearts have even grown 1.5 times the size of ours to handle the altitude. Because I don't know if you've ever been that high. It's not easy. I remember just being around 14,000 feet with them, and we had a small group, and we were hiking up the mountain to a sacred spot to do some ceremony, and I'm taking one step at a time, and I'm dying of and somebody had left their backpack, and one of the Karo ran down 2,000 feet to get it and ran back up 2,000 feet And we checked the pulse, and it wasn't even aerobic. So they're pretty amazing, and you could see very cheerful, beautiful people. They just live, I think, what our goals are as we do our spiritual work. This is Don Manuel Quispe, you see here. He was the elder of the whole Karo nation, if you will. 5 small villages, basically, about 2,000 of them today. And he was sort of the Dalai Lama, if you will, of the Karo. He was the one who taught my teacher Alberto, and he passed away in about the year 2000. But he comes to people's dreams still and gives them help and advice, and then tells them to look me up by name or sending a number of the other students. And I get these emails that say, some guy named Don said to look you up. Came to me in my dream. And, oh, Don Manuel, yes, I do know who you're talking about. Anyway, so that's that. But let's go back to the beginning. I kind of thought it would be funny if I started with a slide of Bugs Bunny saying, in the beginning, there were 2 tiny amoeba. And I don't know if that was too old of a reference for you folks, but when I was a kid, that was an amazing cartoon. Bugs Bunny's History of the World. So we won't go that far back. We'll jump forward several billion years and talk about what the shaman is. And since the beginning of humanity, I believe there's always been one person in the village who has the sensitivity and the gifts, right? And the ability to see things and feel things and know things and dialogue with nature in sort of the physical and the non-physical way, you know? And then use that to improve the quality of life of the village. Ultimately, shamanism is what makes it what it is, essentially relative to many other modalities or wisdom traditions and teachings, is that it's always about how do we take the teachings and how do we take the processes and the gifts that we have and help improve the quality of life of the village, ultimately. Otherwise, it's just sort of interesting conversation, right? Philosophy and wisdom, it's wonderful, but they always think, the Karo would say, you know, that's wonderful, you can have an experience of God and oneness and all these wonderful spiritual and mystic things, but then, so what? How do you grow corn with it? Because that was what mattered most to them, and still does. But everywhere in the world, it doesn't matter what culture, it doesn't matter what part of the world, there's always been, and I know still are, people born with these gifts. And, you know, tend to be the sort of oddball of the family, the black sheep, the ADD, you name it. Yeah, that's perfect slide to show you. There's the modern shaman and the ancient shaman. But yeah, but we're still being born, right? And that's why I said there's probably a lot of shamans in it, because I know there's a lot of shamans in the room. I know most of you are probably this sensitive. But the difference is, of course, that there was a time when it was recognized when you were 4 years old, and they knew they would take you aside and they would begin to train you and teach you how to use these gifts in a very effective way, efficient way, a safe, healthy way for both the shaman and the people. And so that, yeah, it could be most helpful with it, most practical and pragmatic with it. And we've been missing that, of course, in our modern culture. We don't recognize that as much. I was fortunate, though, at some point by my early 30s, to have begun to be exposed to these teachings and to shamans from around the world and different cultures, and I really was soaking it all in. I had an interesting childhood of lots of near-death experiences and stuff we won't get into, but basically, luckily I was able to learn and practice many different traditions from around the world, and that's why I say, you know, the sort of shamanism is kind of the sort of underlying technical aspects of the great wisdom teachings and the religions and the practices. It's sort of like we're technicians of the sacred, as it said in the flyer, which means we're basically like mechanics. We're mechanics of the soul. We have a few processes and ability to get in there and help fix things or change things or heal things and maybe upgrade them. But we can work on any kind of car. So it doesn't matter what your culture is and what your beliefs are and what your life is. A true shaman can sort of get in there and maybe help make things easier for you. Okay. So in that respect, it forms the basis of a lot of what you've already studied and learned, including science, including quantum physics, all these things. I mean, it's physical and non-physical world. And it's either heaven on earth or not so much. You're either having a good quality of life, more experiences you want, less of the ones you don't want, or otherwise. And we'd like to get there. So we're sort of driven by a vision of that. And so the Karo came out of isolation, and they began to teach shamans from all over the world how to take up some of these things that have been lost in a lot of different ways and do it in a way that's safe and effective. So what shamanism isn't, which is something that a lot of people, it get mixed up sometimes, is this concept of sorcery, is like the dark side, the negative stuff. A shaman is really here to, again, free and empower the village, the people, to be co-creators to the greatest degree of their own experiences. Again, hopefully more positive than negative. And so the other would use the same sort of techniques, but to disempower people, to sort of purposely take from them. And so there's a real distinction there. And so a true shaman is really here to make you the free and empowered creator of your own experiences, and to not become in any way dependent on the shaman either. To not, we really, our overall vision is that we're driven by is to live in a world where it's heaven on earth again. We're all children playing in the theater of creation, taking it beyond where it's been before, seeking greater complexity and more interesting experiences here. And then where we go after and where your soul goes after, that's the unknown and the unknowable to us, and we're okay with that. We're comfortable with all of that. In fact, it's a thing where, I recognize all of your courage, in fact, to show up and expose yourself to the unknown and the unknowable. That's a courageous thing to do, right? And I don't know if you really recognize that, but it's a good thing, because it could be a little scary, but that's okay. There's no reason to have it freeze you, but to keep moving forward. So that's what shamanism is about. How it works is shamans see the world essentially that there's kind of 4 domains to it. And each of those aspects of you and of everything influences the next. So in a very technical way, there's like these 4 layers, and it's sort of like those Russian nested dolls. Have you seen those things, right? And each one influences the next. So you have your life experience, which is, again, the whole point of doing everything. How are we doing? How are you doing? And how's your village doing? We have the mind, the psycho-spiritual. So we all know about the power of positive thinking, of prayer, meditation, visualization, knowledge and information, and getting that dialed in and focused on what you want. That's a part of it as well, right? And the only thing that then starts to get interesting, because that largely creates your experiences, the thoughts, and But where it gets interesting is the influences on that, right? So it's hard to keep that focus. That's what a lot of these wonderful practices that we do. Tries to help keep that frontal lobe dialed in with your vision. But the problem is we can be influenced by these things. And so, influenced by other people and things around us and what we observe. And so how do you maintain, right, that clear and positive vibration, right? So that's a lot of the practices you already do. And then the third layer is the mythic, and it's the ritual, the ceremony. You see us sitting there in Peru doing these beautiful rituals that the Karo do to enhance the prayers. So this is called a despacho ceremony, where they would create a piece of paper. They would have a piece of paper, and they would put down all kinds of things that represent all aspects of life in the village. The food, the shelter, the clothing, the grains, the wisdom teachings, the ancestors, and we put all these things in here, and then we blow with our breath prayers into these 3 leaves that represent the 3 worlds, and we put them in this gift, and then we wrap it up and we give it to the earth and the heavens to be sort of mulched. It's the offering, if you will. And that beautiful ritual is it's so powerful because it accesses this third layer, which is the mythic, right? So art, music, poetry, ritual, ceremony, images and symbols. This accesses a deeper part of ourselves that is, in shaman's view, way more powerful than the mind, essentially. In other words, there's only so much you can do with this. And then it's helpful to have a deeper part of ourselves engaged, okay? And so that's what makes shamanism look like the way it does, is the feathers and the rattles and these are my main tools here when I'm doing my work. I've got my rattles, because rattling helps me get into an altered state. I've got my agua de Florida, which is frankincense and myrrh and cedar and sage and all the powerful plant medicines that you've seen. We burn incense, we do clearings, right? In Quechua, though, we use the breath. It's called kamayok, the power of the breath. And so we just put a little bit on the lips, and we just spray a little bit, and it clears the energy fields, and it clears the spaces and stuff like that. So we can create a sacred space wherever we are in order to tap into the depths of our work. And the rattles contain images and symbols of animals, because in these primal cultures and traditions, nature being what it is for us, not only clothes us and feeds us and gives us shelter, but it also provides us with, in medicine, but it provides us with the ritual piece, the mythic piece, and it provides us with also the level of the soul, the energetic piece. And so when we're shaking rattles and wearing animal things and images and symbols like this, which of course is in every religion and every teaching, right? The Lamb of God, right? So all of this is part of everything. We're bringing in the characteristics and instincts of that animal. So you might have heard of the book Animals Speak. It's a beautiful collection of all the things that we would have been taught in school if we hadn't been kicked out of the garden, so to speak, right? We were still an indigenous culture, if you will, or primal culture. They teach you everything that nature's doing for you so that you could call on it. You could, if I'm having trouble making a decision, I can shake my cat rattle or wear my puma shoes or shirt. And that's me calling on the characteristic of cat that I might need, which happens to be decisiveness. That's their medicine. Eagle is non-judgment, right? When that thing happens and you really wonder, oh, this seems horrible, I just, I'm really upset, and you might be upset for a whole year till you realize what happened actually was a good thing when you look back. Well, as a quality of life issue, right, the indigenous people understand that you get out the eagle rattle or the eagle feathers or put a picture on the office wall, and you're pulling in that 30,000-foot view of the eagle. You're giving yourself a chance to already look at that. So it's just very, it's a very rich and wonderful way, and a very open way to work. Shamanism is inherently an open system. True shamanism is still growing in complexity with the complexity of society. So the modern right way for the ancient wisdom, that's shamanic. Your whole center here is very shamanic, and the way Dr. Bill teaches and such, the way I've heard. So, you know, we're changing, nature's changing, there's new things coming up, new ways of being, neurobiology is changing, and so we love to have a sort of medicine, right, that keeps up with that. So that's what shamanism is. And let's see, what else can I tell you? This woman that you see in the slide here, her name is Vilma, and she's part of a family, a well-known family in Peru of healers and shamans, not from Karos, but from another tribe in one of the holy mountains there. And she was struck by lightning twice in the womb. Her mother was struck by lightning when she was pregnant with her, which, of course, in shamanism sometimes is the hard way to get woken up. There's sort of an easy way and a hard way to do everything, right? So you can you can shake your rattles and go into a journey and maybe get it that way, or you can get struck by lightning, or a big illness or near-death experience of other sorts. But that was the way it happened for her, and so she came out ready to go and ready to be of help. And when she was a little girl, she wanted her father, who was a very well-known shaman in Peru, to take her to his home village. And he wouldn't do it. It was too soon or whatever. But of course, the uncle said, "Oh, you can come with me," right? the darn uncle, right? That always. And so they're all walking. I mean, they walk for days, high in the altiplano, you know, of the Andes. And they're all walking along, and there's this huge wind that picks up, and everybody screams and starts scattering and hiding. And this giant tribe of condors comes upon them. And if you've ever been near any of these things, they're 14-foot wingspan, so they create wind when they go by. And she was just standing there. She had no experience of this, no idea. And these condors can carry off small children. I mean, it's a very real possibility. And so there she was, and everybody's watching. And the sort of interesting thing about condors is that they're like people. They have hierarchy. They have tribe leaders. They're very, when we go near them and they fly by us, they look you right in the eyes, and it's you feel this sort of communication. And you've probably seen videos on Facebook of the condor that was hugging the guy who had saved it. Anyway, amazing animals. And so this condor, the head condor, they call apuchin in Quechua, in their language, which literally means mountain bringing. So the condors bring the spirit and the medicine of the mountain down to the people. And this one looks her right, he's hovering in front of her, he looks her right in the eyes, and then they leave. And so she's known as the Condor woman. She's been initiated by these condors, and her medicine is extremely powerful and healing. And condors' medicine, they're the cleanup crew, right? Like vultures, they take the rotting flesh of dead things and they eat it, and so they're very good for cleaning and the work that we do. So I have condor feathers that I use. I didn't pay attention. How am I doing on time? I'm sorry, I failed to. I'm sorry.
Maybe 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 more minutes? Okay, I just wanted to check in case because I can go on and on. Anyway, so the mythic is a huge piece of the work. When I work with people, and I know you're used to doing this here as well, there's a bunch of homework that I give them that's like blowing into a stick and burning it. There's destiny altars, like vision boards. There's There's ancestor altars that we do, because part of the work is to make sure we're not repeating our ancestors' struggles and wounds. You know, we would usually do this ritual when we turn 13 if we were still, you know, doing these things where they cut you free, they pass you through a tree or a hole in the ground after they've cut this cord between your parents, and now you're an adult, and your true mother is the earth and your true father is the sun, and you go grow your own food and raise your own family. And if you like them, you can still have tea. If you don't, you never have to see them again. And it made it clean. And of course, the parent grieves the loss of their child at that point because it's over. But these beautiful, it's always easier to do ritual and ceremony than here or here, arguing with your parents. You don't know anything, I'm leaving, you know, the typical thing, right? So ritual and ceremony is just a really big part of shamanism, and again, it's in the sense of what's really practical and pragmatic. Does it really serve you? You know, if you're going to create a vision board or a destiny altar for yourself, the world, the life you'd love to be experiencing, right? What would you prefer to be living? What kind of world would you prefer to be living in? You'd want to make a picture of that. You'd want to put that up on a wall. But you'd want to make sure that the feeling you get, the emotion, the deep power that comes from the feminine, the body, and the heart is elicited by these images, that it's a match. We want all the layers of your being to match your vision, is the bottom line, your prayer. And so shamanism is a way to do that. So there's the ritual aspect, the sort of, like I said, the images, the symbols. And you can do it your way. It's an open system, so you don't have to stick to what somebody tells you. That's more institutionalized. That would be more religion or a spiritual tradition. Shaman says, yeah, take this, do that, use this works from over here, and then make something up. Do it your way. And that's just a really powerful way to engage as the master of your own life, of your own domain, of your own mind, and life experiences. So the other thing that shamanism focuses on is that in life, it's really the experiences rather than the literal form. You know this, right? That it's not that house you want, it's the open, roomy, airy feeling and the good view that it gives you. In which case, that house is available. That one's not. So God works in mysterious ways, right? That's how we look at it as shamans. The fourth layer, to finish up, the fourth layer is where we like to start the work, because it's the furthest upstream. It's like wiggling your finger in the spring that causes a wave down the river to clear out the lagoon, as opposed to lifting each piece out of the lagoon the hard way, one by one. So when it comes to healing, when it comes to, dreaming your world into being, creating your vision, to us, it's easier to start the furthest upstream and then work downstream. So we do the work first on the level of the soul, then we do the mythic ritual, then we do the wisdom teachings, the meditation, the prayer, the visualization, the feeling, and then things will start to change for you. So the fourth layer here, the soul, right? Yeah, the aura and chakras in Sanskrit, anima in Italian, l'âme in French. There's a name for it in every language. And just like there's a name for God, right? The one absolute only being in the room, right? Allah, Yahweh, God, Dios. So it's the same thing with the soul. And this is who you are even after this physical body's gone. It's, to shamans, the you that can't wait to come play in the theater again, believe it or not. Even though it's been a little more pain than pleasure for the most of the, when it's good, it's good. So we recognize it's like going to the movies. You pay your $10, but you keep it a secret from yourself that it's fake and it's not, it's the same actor as the last movie. So we do have a concept in shamanism called keeping secrets even from yourself, which is taking all the wisdom and everything, but sometimes not saying anything. Just let it play out. Let the drama play out, right? And And so we recognize that most of the time it's the same thing here. We want to come here, we want to enjoy, we want to take this amazing experience of God experiencing herself, himself, to the next level. Where does it go next? What do you want to do next? How do you want to play next, right? And so we love to keep coming back and doing that. But what's nice is that we'd love to be able to come back with as clear a soul and as powerful a soul as we can. So a big part of the shaman's work is recognizing that the difficult experiences you're having in life can be sourcing themselves from patterns at the deepest layer of your being that are manifesting, right, over and over and over again. And there's only 6 painful human experiences. There's only 6 problems that ever walk through a psychologist's door. There's really only 6 movies that have ever been made. There's, and it's loss, abuse, betrayal, abandonment, neglect, and engulfment. So everything that's painful falls under one of those, whether it's through your health, your relationships, your work, or your resources. You could lose a car, lose a friend, lose your house, lose a job. It's just loss. Does that make sense, right? So when those patterns get stuck, because really what's natural in the world, if you're like children, you enter the gates of heaven, right? You've heard this, because when you're normal and natural, healthy human being and something painful happens, because you can't have all pleasure in the theater, there's got to be contrast. But when something painful happens, we're built to cry and scream and yell till we can't anymore. Right? And then that heavy energy that we can't process goes out our first chakra into the earth and gets mulched, just like our food does. The earth takes our waste and mulches it. And then we're free. We're good to go. We just keep playing. But unfortunately, for a long time now, we've been told, don't cry, don't get angry, right? Suck it up, be strong, be an adult, don't be silly, etc. Don't be feminine, be masculine. And so don't be material, be spiritual. So we've been blocking and backed up the sewage system a bit. So the first thing we do when we work with people is clear that, like taking the mud out of the bottom of a glass. My team and I, it's not just John. When you get trained as a shaman, you get initiated, which means that when I show up, the whole team shows up. And the cool thing about shamanism being an open system, it's not just my powerful Karo team, it's Jesus and Mary and the angels, because I was raised Catholic. It's Enoch and Metatron from the Jew. It's all the Hindu. It's the A-team, right? I want everybody to show up, please, because I'm not sure I could do all of this. I know I can't. So the good thing is they show up and they help clear all that old stuff from perhaps multiple lifetimes of yours. They clear any of your ancestral wounds. We do soul retrieval. We bring back parts of you that went missing because of a trauma, kind of like PTSD. And then we do the destiny retrieval. We're able to go forward in time. And you can pray here with the mind. You can make a picture of it even better. But we can also access this layer and bring those patterns in. Right? And not just for your own life and journey, but since you're all interested in your village as well, I would imagine, we can do that for the entire world. That's what monks do, that's what people are doing all over the place, is literally dreaming the world into being, trying to bring in the energetic patterns of an ideal vision, of an ideal world. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what true shamanism is and how it could be used to support any and every tradition, any and every path through the forest. I like to think of it as just the whole forest, and you can, one way or the other, you'll get to the end, as has been said. So I think for a little bit after, I'm going to offer a little bit of like an opportunity to experience it. If for those who want to stick around, we can run through, I can do a little journey with you that's part of that destiny retrieval, for example, and some clearing and stuff. So I'll stick around and do that for a while. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much for listening to me.